Welcome to a brand new series, and I'm delighted to say the top picker this week is the wonderful Noel Gallagher. Welcome to the show, Noel.
Thank you very much.
We're going to be discussing things later in the programme, but who are the first people that you've picked?
I've picked a performance by a band called The Strokes, and the tune is called Last Night.
Thank you, the Black Keys, and I'm now delighted to welcome back into the studio our top picker this week, Noel Gallagher. Welcome to the show, Noel. It's marvellous to have you here. Thank you for making some excellent choices that we'll be discussing. Tell us about the first thing that you chose, The Strokes with Last Night from 2006.
Well, actually, when I sent the list, it was kind of like, you know, you forget how many amazing artists and performances have been on the show down the years. And well, The Strokes, I remember when they first came along, there's about half a dozen people in my life who kind of, you will take their opinions on music all day. 5 out of the 6 of them in the space of a week said, "Have you got this mob from New York, The Strokes?" And I was like, I keep hearing about it. And when that first EP came out, The Modern Age, it had kind of taken guitar music somewhere else. And that whole period after that, with the Libertines and Kasabian and the Arctic Monkeys, was probably the last great British period for guitar music. And for that couple of years, when they first came to England, we went everywhere to see them. We used to go to festivals just to see them. And they were brilliant. They looked great. And they seemed to herald a new spirit in guitar music.
But where does music start for you?
I'd be 10 years old. I remember I was holding hands with my mum going up Burnage Lane in Manchester and seeing a guy walking in front of us. He had peroxide white hair, and dyed onto the back of his head was a huge exclamation mark in black.
Nice.
And of course, I was like, he was a punk. It turned out he was one of the members of the Stockholm Monsters, who were the first band ever to come from Burnage. Oasis was the second. And punk, that's a funny word. And I remember some of the older lads on our estate had Never Mind the Bollocks. And it was just the album with the swearing in. And for us, we were just too young, maybe like 5 or 6 years too young to fully understand it. But Never Mind the Bollocks is probably still, if push comes to shove, it's easily one of my favourite albums, but might be my favourite. It's definitely, I'd say, one of the most influential albums of all time.
What about the Beatles? When you started hearing them?
The Beatles were always there, but they were kind of from the past, you know. And the first time I was like in 1980. I was sat home listening to Man City on the radio, and a news flash called Breaking News now. It used to be a news flash then. It came through that John Lennon had been shot in New York. And for the next couple of weeks, obviously, there's blanket coverage. And that's when I really started to get into the music side. I always knew who the Beatles were.
Yeah.
But I guess it's with the death of John Lennon that...
your interest was born.
Yeah. Who is this guy? Why is everybody? Why is and the peace thing and all that and the candles, and that's kind of was my road into it.
And talking of the Beatles, your next choice is Paul McCartney, and it's from 2010 when he's playing some of the music of Wings, which is a fantastic part of his canon of music.
Only the band the Beatles could have been, according to Alan Partridge.
What made you pick this of all the things of Paul?
When Band on the Run, the reissue came out, would have been around that time, I think. You kind of know all the big tracks off that album, but right on the end, I kind of listened to it in its entirety for the first time, and there was interesting stuff on it. I'd never heard this song. I don't think I ever got as far as it's the last track, and it was jaw-dropping. I couldn't have thought any more highly of that dude. Or I thought up until that point. And then I remember calling Weller and saying, "You heard this tune 1985? Well, of course I've. Don't tell me about it. Get a life, mate." That's what he said to me. And I was like, "I'm sorry." And but it's he's an amazing. Obviously, McCartney is an amazing songwriter, but that in particular was a great tune.
When did you decide that music is something that you can do? Because you said you've seen sort of suddenly aware of the Beatles, you're aware of punk music. And when did you think, well, maybe I could do this?
Well, for some reason, no one's really got to the bottom of how this happened. there just appeared in our house, behind the kitchen door, an acoustic guitar. No one knows where it came from. My dad was a DJ at the time. He could never play the guitar. And he must have brought it home. None of us would have been able to afford one. And I used to get quite a lot of trouble as a kid, so I was grounded all the time. And I remember just taking up to my room and playing Love Will Tear Us Apart, the bass line on one of the strings. And it just got me from there. And I went from one string to two, and then I spent hours on it until one of the older guys from the estate came round and he said, "That your guitar? It's not even in tune." And he tuned it up. I had to start again then, because I just thought, tune had never dawned on me. I was just playing one string, you know. And
how long were you playing it before it was tuned, out of interest?
I'd say about 6 months.
It's quite a long time, yeah.
Yeah. But like playing the guitar and then, I guess, writing a song for the first time.
What was your first song?
Oh, it's probably about a girl from, fancied. It never made it anywhere. But if there hadn't have been that guitar in the house, would it even occurred to me to get one?
The next choice is the Coral, Dreaming of You from 2002.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Coral.
Well, again, I've got lots of friends in Liverpool who kind of tipped us the wink about this band, the Coral. And Oasis were out in our studio at the time. We had Alvin Lee's old studio in Wickham called Wheeler End, and we were out there doing something. And this band were playing at Dingwalls. And so we got in the van and traipsed into London to see, and these lads walked on stage, and they were kids. They were so young that they'd signed their record deal that day, but their parents had to sign it for them. And they played this song, and it sounded like Frank Sinatra meets The Who meets Burt Bacharach. And this was the first song, and it was an instrumental. And we kind of went backstage to see them, and they're all sat there, all, ruddy-cheeked and topless. No way, these fellas off the telly, look at these, no way, la. And we became really good mates with them, and we took them on tour. And it's still one of my favourite ever bands. And Dreaming of You is just, it's a classic.
Yeah, I love that song, The Coral, Dreaming of You. You were just saying, then what happened?
Well, Lee, one of the guitarists, when they got their first royalties, one of the lads told me that he bought him and his mum and his dad 3 reclining leather armchairs with the cup holders in. And they would sit there and watch the telly, like thinking, this is it. This is it. never mind chimps and private jets.
That's right.
That's right. An armchair, lad, and a belly in there.
Absolutely charming. When he was on Later Last, Morrissey said to me, "You are who you've got on your wall." You know, when you're a young person. But who did you have on your wall?
The Jam, the Smiths, Bob Marley, various City players. I share a bedroom with Liam, so the wall space was at a premium.
Fighting over the wall space?
Unfortunately, it started quite young. Yeah, but I was a huge fan of the Jam, as you can imagine, and the Smiths. I had posters of those guys, yeah. And the Sex Pistols, that famous picture of the Sex Pistols where Johnny's dressed as a teddy boy. It's like the classic. It's like the classic picture. Sid's in a big long trench coat. Yeah, and do kids have posters on the walls anymore?
I don't know if they're probably not allowed. It's probably not safe. It's probably unsafe or something, or unhygienic or something. It's probably not allowed. Anyway, the next people you've chosen is Young Fathers.
Yeah.
From 2018.
Well, Young Fathers, I seen them would have been on later. Visually, they just looked amazing. And it's kind of music that you can't really pigeonhole. And then, as luck would have it, 6 months later, I did a festival with them in Bilbao. And traipsed all the way through the field, see them. Still to this day, I'd say it's one of the best gigs I've ever seen. And so energy, and they look great. And it's kind of, I hate to use the word modern about any kind of music, but it's contemporary. Every band that you kind of like or explodes in your face of some indefinable quality that you can't really put, like the Strokes. I couldn't really put my finger on what it was about the Strokes. I just love the thing. Same with Young Fathers and Jungle, I just love the thing, and it's not really music that I'm associated with. But Young Fathers blew me away.
You were just saying that was great because you can't quite pigeonhole them, can you? You
No,
know?
I was just saying it's not dance music, but it is electronic, and it's not punk, but it's got that attitude and energy of it, and it kind of seems to be a swirl of influences, and out comes your own thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is all great music is like that, I think.
Yes, I think that's it. It is. It's a swirl of stuff, and out comes something new.
Yeah, and then you kind of put your own take on it, and then hey presto, you've got something new. You know?
Now you've got a new album, Back the Way We Came, Volume 1, because I like that. That's just Volume 1, which is for openers. But it's 10 years.
Yeah.
Of the High Flying Birds.
Yeah, and the reason it's Volume 1 is because I sat at the kitchen table one afternoon thinking, what am I going to call it? And all the titles are really corny. And then, of course, there's that saying, Back the Way We Came. What an amazing title. If I ever get to do another one, I'm not coming up with another title. I'm going to call it Volume 2. But it's been nice to put a pause on it and look back and think, well, that was a pretty eventful 10 years. You know, I remember doing later, not for the first time, for Who Built the Moon, and we're all kind of crammed into one room, and there's 3 girls, 2 of them are French, fighting over the mirror for putting on makeup, and you know, and one of the girls said, did you ever think it'd get like this, you know, your band? And I was like thinking, I'd hoped it kind of would, you know what I mean?
This is the showbiz dream.
Yeah, but because I started it, there was 5 grumpy middle-aged men, you know, and it's gone on to, you know, with 3 exotic French girls and, you know, 11, you know, brass section. Now I've got 11 people in the band and someone playing the scissors, and it's kind of like...
Well, let's have a look at that. Let's have a look at that first, actually. We've got that. I mean, you've been on a few times. It's great, really great performance. Yeah. But this particular thing went viral, didn't it? I mean, which is quite extraordinary.
Well, the story of it is we were rehearsing for later, and cause Charlotte does the spoken word in the middle, and it's after about a minute and a half. So I said to her in rehearsals, she said, what shall I do? What am I going to do? Just stand there? And I said, let's play tambourine or something. She said, I cannot play the tambourine. And I was like, who can't play the tambourine? Anyone can play the tambourine. My cat can play the tambourine. And she's like, I can't play the tambourine. So we play shaker. Shaker? What's a shaker? And I was like, well, you've got to do something. And she said, well, I can play the scissors. And I did that. Sorry? She said, I can play the scissors. I'll bring them tomorrow. And I remember looking at my bass player going, did she just say scissors? And he was like, far out, mate. Anyway, she turns up the next day and she's got the scissors, and they're herb scissors with like 4 blades, and they do make this kind of backwards hi-hat sound. And I said, yeah, just do that. I never really thought anything of it. You know, and then we do the thing and it broadcast. For about a month afterwards, every interview I did was about that. You know, and people were trying to... It's funny that music journalists were trying to look for some meaning in it.
Yeah. What's she trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do? Are you like trolling Oasis fans? Is that what you're doing? And I'm like, trolling? What even is that? You know, it's like this live trolling. And I was like, only a journalist would look for the meaning in it. It's like, it's just, I don't know, that's what she does, you know. And, you know, it took a lot of restraint not to get them on the merchandise stall, I have to say.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what a great, let's have a look at this legendary moment, as it turned out.
That day, Tom Hanks' missus was on.
Oh, that's right.
And he was there.
Rita Wilson was on, Tom's wife, because she came on, she was singing a song with Jose Feliciano on a record we'd done.
That's right. So there's a knock on the door. She comes in and says, hey, got any whiskey in here? We were like, you've come to the right place. I gave her some whiskey. And Tom
Rita Wilson wanted the whiskey?
Yeah.
Right.
And Tom, unbeknownst to us, Tom had watched us do the performance. So a couple of days later, I'm at a friend's party in Hollywood, and in walks Tom Hanks. And he called me by my first name, and he went, no! And I was like, Tom Hanks, no way! And he was going on about Holy Mountain for ages. He was saying, you know, people don't write songs like that anymore. And I was kind of looking back going, is anybody filming this? This is amazing.
Could you speak up a bit, Tom?
Yeah. And that was a great day all round.
So we're on our way now. It's a single, which is great.
Yeah.
Great song, really great song. And you've got Matt Smith in the video, beautifully shot in black and white.
As we call him, Matt Smith from The Crown.
How did he sort of end
well,
up
Matt, I've known Matt for quite a while. We'll be getting on maybe 10 years now. And I manipulated him with alcohol round at mine and waited till he was in a good mood. And as he was leaving, I said, by the way, I'm doing a video next week. Do you fancy being in it? And he was like, yeah, mate, no problem. I'm in there. And I held him to it. So Matt's in this video and the next one.
Oh, very good.
It was great, and I got to do I got to be in a scene with him. And of course, I hate videos, and you realise that, you know, when you're sat opposite like a proper actor, and they're kind of getting into the zone, and you're just like you're from a council estate in Manchester, thinking, well, what am I doing? I'm going to start acting now with Matt Smith from The Crown. But it's the video's come out good, actually.
Good luck in the afterlife. I hear the morning sun doesn't cast no shadow. You chose to drift away, but look at you now. We're on our way now. The truth can be so hard to swallow. Hey now, 'cause you got the love lady, and worn out. 'Cause with every little trick they try to drag you down. So don't know why.
We're on our way now from Back the Way We Came, Volume 1. It is a good trade title, Back the Way We Came.
It's great,
If you're gonna have a best of, Back the Way We Came is the title. And looking back, 10 years of the High Flying Birds, which has gone like that, and suddenly there's all
yeah.
the work that goes with that, all of the body of work that goes with
Yeah,
it.
well, one of the girls in the office said, you know, it's 10 years. And I was thinking, 10 years? Just think of all the things I could have done.
Yeah.
If
What we could have achieved, it wasn't for
could have done. I might have had a driving licence now or learnt to swim. But it's been better than I ever thought it would be. And actually, I was reminded of a quote that I gave a journalist, because I'm doing promo for it now, that on the day that I launched the band, he was saying, asking me what I'd hoped it would be. And apparently I'd said to him, as soon as I shake off the Oasis thing and try and spread my wings a little, and hopefully the band will be forever changing, it'll become more of a collective. And as I sit here today, it's like, actually, we're kind of going along nicely.
So the last music you've chosen is the Zootons.
Yeah. Well, good mates of mine. The bass player is now my bass player. When the Zootons broke up, Oasis had just broke up, and I was sitting in the back garden one afternoon, and the phone went, and it was just a number, it wasn't a name. I don't usually answer that kind of thing. Anyway, I did, and on the end of it, it's Scouser. Oh, mate, it's Russ from the Zootons. And I was like, all right, mate. And I met him a couple of times and hung out with him. And he's like, are you going solo? I said, yeah. He said, are you making a record? I said, yeah. He said, can I play the bass? And I was like, yeah. He said, is that it? Is it that easy? And I was like, yes. And well, the reason that I picked this is one night we're on tour at High Flying Birds in New York, and he introduces me to Valerie, the actual girl from the song.
Oh.
Who has got ginger hair. Oh. And
where was she from? Was she from New York?
She's from whatever the bit is across the river in New York. Is it New Jersey or something? And Dave apparently wrote it, looking across, you know, every night I go out and I stare across the water. She's a real girl, lovely girl. And I was like, no way. I'm not sure she realises how big that song actually became. And yeah, but it's a great tune. It's a great tune. I much prefer it to Amy's version. And Dave, I don't know what Dave's up to now, but he's an amazing songwriter. And I do love that group, sadly missed.
Well, it's been fantastic having you as our guest here this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Noel Gallagher.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Here's the Zootons.